This is Cheat for Yourself. Now, here's Gio.
Hi, welcome to Cheat for Yourself. Great to have you with us, wherever you happen to be in the world at this moment. If you can remember back to the 70s, you might recall the Partridge Family show's theme song, the one that encouraged us to come on, get happy. Well, today we're going to tackle the subject of happiness. Tough to do in a 30-minute show, you say? Well, our guest has written a book that encourages us to model happy and successful people, and he says it's what you feel which attracts the sort of life you have. Andrew Matthews is the author of How Life Works, Why Happy People Are More Successful, How You Can Be Like Them. Andrew, we often hear from guests who've overcome great adversity in their lives, and after reading How Life Works and seeing what a handle you have on the happiness process, I'm wondering, have you always been a happy person? Were you happy growing up?
Yeah, you know, John, when I was 25, I made a shocking discovery. The happiest people I knew had bigger problems than me, and that made no sense at all. And I was trying to figure out how can this be, and yet I'm sure that so many of you listening to this segment today can think of people that you know who have been through massive challenges. Maybe they've lost loved ones, maybe they've gone broke or battled serious illness. And these are the people who seem to find more meaning and more joy and more direction in life. And so sit up and realize that it's not really having an easier life that makes you happy. It is how you think about your problems. It's how you see things. And so that was really a catalyst, if you like. I suddenly had to realize that it wasn't when my life got easier that I would get happy. It was when I began to see things differently. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that led to my first book being Happy, and then to what's been a series of books, and ultimately How Life Works.
Well, early on, you had a little different direction, I guess. You say you wanted to be Prime Minister of Australia, and by your teen years, you wanted to be an artist. Kind of take us through that. What took you from art to personal development?
Well, I mean, I guess I was a cocky 12-year-old, and so I thought, you know, what is the top job that one can have? And so I thought, well, Prime Minister would be a good start. But I grew up drawing and painting, and I loved doing that. And so I actually studied classical drawing and painting, and made my living as a portrait artist. And I had a small private art school when I was in my early 20s, where I used to teach drawing and painting. But I had this parallel interest in personal development. And specifically, why is it that some people live lives that are more exciting, more adventurous, more successful, more prosperous? And trying to figure out, is it in the DNA? Is it that these people just believe they can have it? Or what is it? And that led to that first book being Happy, which was really, I guess, an analysis of what it is that some people apart. Some simple observations that I'd made, and you know, I sent that manuscript off to like 78 publishers and had 78 rejections, and then eventually the final publisher that accepted it, I think we did 2.5 million copies with Being Happy. So suddenly I was a published author, and so I've spent much of the last 30 years studying happy people and trying to share simple tips illustrated with my own cartoons on how we can live a better life. And How Life Works is really a study of why it is that some people live extraordinary lives. People who aren't necessarily the best educated. They don't necessarily work harder. So what is it that these extraordinary people do, and that's what How Life Works is about, and how we can be like them.
Well, you write in the book about not only happiness, but the attractor energies and how they work. So if we take, for instance, people who get rich, how do people get rich other than just working hard and putting in a lot of hours? What are they bringing to them that the rest of people are not?
Well, the first thing is you've got to enjoy what you do, and that doesn't mean that you don't do it with a lot of skill and a lot of application, but there is something about people who just can't wait to get to work in the morning, or always try to figure out how to do it. There's something about having enthusiasm. There's something about blessed to be able to do what you do. And that kind of enthusiasm and that kind of happiness is a magnet for opportunity. So it's very much a matter of not so much what you know or who you know, but it's the feeling you bring to your life. The other thing I notice is that unattachment is so important that when whatever we do, we're thinking, is this going to create results, or is this going to be my big break? The more we are attached to things, the less things seem to work. But when we joyfully go about our business, when we say, I would be doing this even if I wasn't paid, do this saying, I'm doing this for the joy of it, then that unattachment seems to make things happen. And then we get into that, if we like, the law of attraction, and we attract things and people when we have that buoyant, joyful energy. People often say, well, what is it, why is it that the law of attraction sometimes doesn't seem to work? And when we're desperate, if you've ever tried to sell a car, if you've ever been desperate to rent an apartment or sell an apartment, or desperate to get a job, we somehow create an energy that just pushes things away. And we're continually getting cues from the universe, if you like, that say, you need to be joyful, you need to just be celebrating, and you need to be also doing the best you can at whatever you do, just because that is your personal motto. Not for anything more than you say, I know that the joy of life is in doing the best that I can. And all of those things together tend to lead to a successful outcome. And often we end up going off on tangents and taking a route that we would not have expected.
Early on in the book, you write that we have control, and I'm reading that this isn't about willpower, is it? It's not a control of willpower.
No, I don't believe willpower is nearly as we're led to believe. I mean, certainly, if we look at people who consistently succeed, they do have a discipline, if you like. They tend to apply themselves and improve their skills and make sure they show up. But I think it's much more about joyful application and celebration than it is about saying, I'm just going to make this happen if it kills me. I mean, if we look at the Richard Bransons of the world, I mean, there is a joy about what he does, that has underlied, all of his successes. We look at even the runner, Usain Bolt, you look at people who flourish and succeed. They so often they have this energy about them that it is just a privilege to do what they do.
There are published articles that suggest that happiness could be at least 50% a product of genetics. Do you have any thoughts on that?
That may well be so. And certainly from another point of view, we model our parents, and we're a product of our environment. But, I come across so many people who have read one or other of my books, or I meet them at conferences, and they say, I spent so many years just focusing on what was wrong with my life and looking at what was wrong with my husband and my job, and they say then I just started to look for things that I could appreciate, and I started to have a sense of gratitude. And the story is so often that once I began to change what I looked for, I can't believe how things have changed. John, I was doing a radio interview in Malaysia a couple of years ago, and a lady said to me, she said, my boyfriend is always positive, and I'm not so positive. But she said he works with refugees and he helps people out, and his attitude has gradually changed my attitude. And she says, now that I'm so much happier, she said, I can't believe how lucky I get. Mm. And in a way that encapsulates how life works is about. It's about when we start to change how we see things, when we start to change how we feel, when we live out of a sense of gratitude, then things just work for us. And there's another fundamental idea underlying to how life works, and that is that we grow up believing makes us happy, and the reality is that happiness makes us successful. And I had a neighbor when I was something like 25. Her name was Caroline, and she always seemed to have this buoyant, joyful attitude, and I discovered that she'd had tragedy in her life, like many people. She was already, she'd been divorced a couple of times. She lost her mother to cancer early, but she always seemed to have this joyful, happy attitude. And I watched her as she went from one extraordinary place of employment to another all over the world. She used to manage hotels. And she shared with me just a few years ago that she had 14 extraordinary placements as general manager of hotels all over the world with different companies, and she never, ever applied for one position. She just loved what she did, and she did her best, and she just accepted that when it was time for her to be in another position in another country, that it would happen. And for me, that was really an education, watching her and starting to understand that, again, you don't necessarily force things to happen. If you get up every day and you appreciate what you have and you do your best and live with a sense of gratitude, then you don't have to find opportunity through willpower. You don't have to push things. Opportunity just comes and finds you.
Our guest on this Chief for Yourself is Andrew Matthews, author of How Life Works, Why Happy People Are More Successful, How You Can Be Like Them. You used the line in the book, what you think about is what you bring about. And if we were to expand that on sort of a macro level, let's say the plight of a certain group of people in a country, maybe it's poverty. Can we say that they are somehow, not to blame, but they are somehow contributing to that?
I believe so, and I like the point that you say that they're not to blame. I mean, we all do our best, knowing what we know, and so it's not productive to allocate blame and say, these people are guilty of this or that. But I think a way of understanding communities and countries is to look at individuals and what an individual does. If I believe that everyone is against me, and if I believe that God is against me, and if I believe that life is fair, then I will I will respond to people around me, and I will probably overlook opportunity, and I will, as a result, I suffer ill health and so many things that are a result of just having a jaundiced view. And then if I, at some point, begin to change think, well, maybe I was contributing to this, and how can I get up every day and say, let me celebrate what I do have. Then the opportunities that I can embrace and enjoy automatically change, and that is true for a town. We see towns that are transformed by few that just say, we're going to make this town special, and suddenly a whole town changes.
Yeah, I think that's been borne out. Here in the U.S., they've done projects where they've concentrated on these kinds of, shall we say, healthier thoughts, and they've actually reduced crime during a certain period. So it can, on, like you say, a wide level, a city-wide level or whatever, it can make a difference. Those thoughts are things, aren't they?
Yeah, thoughts are things, and the most productive thing is that we can say, I don't have to change the world, I just need to change myself. Mm-hmm. And as we do that, then we change just a little bit at a time. And so, I gave a presentation yesterday where I shared the idea that your mission in life is not to go out and make other people happy. Just be happy, just be a role model, and gradually the ripple effect starts.
One of the lines in the book that really intrigued me is that the universe is not a machine, it's a big thought. Talk about that.
The interesting thing is that we go to school and we learn about Sir Isaac Newton and the Newtonian Model of how the world works, which to the young high school student sounds like it's a big machine. Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing is that Sir Isaac Newton would not have agreed with that at all, and a lot of his papers were lost in a big fire. And a lot of his and experiments have not been fully understood, and he did a lot of experiments in relation to the human mind. And it is a lot more like a big thought than it is a big machine. And so many experiments have been done with quantum physics. If we start to understand that the world is not operating like some big machine, but we are sentient beings with thoughts within a universe that is operating like a great big thought, then we can start to feel that we are much more, I suppose, in control of our own destiny, and that thoughts, what we hold in our mind, is so important. And we start to say, hey, this law of attraction that all of us have heard about at some point, has to be a part of it. That we are so much more powerful than we might have ever believed.
We are living in a time of social media, and I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts on how social media could be affecting our happiness?
One of the things that social media encourages us to do is to compare ourselves, and it's always a trap, because if you compare yourself with somebody and you think you're better than them, then you lose. And if you compare yourself and you think that you're not as good as someone else, or you don't measure up, then you also lose. And so that is such a trap, particularly for our young people who are perhaps inclined to say, well, my friend has 2,000 friends on Facebook and I've only got 300, so they're doing better than I am. The good thing is that there are so many websites and there are so many Facebook pages out there that are positive and are sharing positive thoughts and positive things. If we can just direct ourselves in those directions, but we need to support our young people and help to give them a sense of what is important and what's not. And I think we've all had the feeling, certainly I have, that there is a lot of what happens on social media that is just giving other people this idea of this is my perfect life, which is not the real deal at all, because we all struggle and we all face challenges, and we all live in imperfect families, and we need to keep that in mind, especially our young people.
You have a great handle on your inner space, and mindfulness is a very big part of what we do on this show. Do you follow a meditative or contemplative practice?
I do. I find that I need to give myself a good 15 or 20 minutes first thing every day. So I have a comfortable chair upstairs. My office is actually upstairs in my home. And I meditate for 20 minutes before I do anything. And having done that, then I sit down with my journal and I write down 10 things I'm grateful for. I used to do 3, and then I thought, well, it'd be better to do 10. and that is the way of my day. I just, I find, as we all do, sometimes I'm so keen to do something that I think, maybe I can skip it, because I want to write this piece, or I want to draw this cartoon, or I want to go off and play tennis or something. But my day always works better, and I think we all find that. Now, I wrote somewhere that if you haven't got time to meditate today is the day that you absolutely have to do it.
Any final thoughts on, well, for someone who wants to get a handle on their own life and how it works?
Well, let's look at some happiness tips. I mean, when someone says, well, okay, my life is fairly ordinary, what can I do to be happier? Well, number one is, this is an easy one, quit complaining. We talk about what we think about, and that's obvious, but we also think about what we talk about. And so when we decide that we're going to discipline how much we complain and put a lid on that, then we make more room for happy thoughts. So that's number one. Number two is look for good things in every situation. Happy people, when they leg or when they get sick or when they go through a relationship problem, they say, well, what's one good thing about this? If we can find one good thing. We need to do things that we enjoy. So number 3 would be find some time every day to do something you enjoy, even if it's 10 minutes. Whether it's gardening or reading about gardening or poetry or breeding fish or whatever it is, do something you love every day. Number 4 would be kind. Happy people are kind people. Happy people help out. Happy people give compliments. Happy people forgive, and are usually the first to forgive. And number 5 would be living with a sense of gratitude. Happy people focus on what they have, and unhappy people focus on what's missing. So those have ideas from how life works.
Andrew's website is andrewmatthews.com. The book is How Life Works, Why Happy People Are More Successful, How You Can Be Like Them, from Andrew Matthews. Andrew, thanks for doing the interview and for taking on such an important topic and giving us these really clear-cut steps toward happiness. Do come back and talk with us again. It'd be great to have a fellow tennis enthusiast with us.
Very good. Thank you.
I'll put a link to Andrew's website at achieve4yourself.com. Genuline's the best way to hear about who's going to be on the program and when, along with other guest details. To get the post, just put your email address into the box provided at the top of the start page at achieve4yourself.com, and you'll get all the info. That's going to do it for today. Be well. I'll talk to you soon.